Well, thank you all for joining virtually for today's information session. My name is Lauren Russell. I'm one of the professors here in the Master of Public Administration program. I'm also one of the two faculty directors of the Master of Public Administration and Executive Master of Public Administration programs. I'm joined here by one of my colleagues, Marlon Lewis, who is our Assistant Director for Student Services and Recruitment. So if you've reached out to us with any questions, you may have already spoken to Marlon, but he's a great resource if after today's session you have any follow-up questions. We'll provide my email, his email, and a more general email that you can always reach out to. So the plan for today's information session is I'll give a little bit of an introduction to the Fels Institute of Government, which houses the Master of Public Administration programs. We'll do a more detailed overview of the programs. I'll then talk about scholarships and financial aid, the admissions process, and then we'll have time at the end for any questions and answers. Now, I will say if any questions pop up as I'm going through some of this plan material, please do interrupt me with any questions you have. You can raise your hand in Zoom. You can put something in the chat. You can just unmute yourself and ask your question live. Any and all of that is certainly welcome. So please do feel free to ask your questions so that this is as useful to you as possible. So Fels is short for the Fels Institute of Government, which, as I mentioned, has the Master of Public Administration degrees at the University of Pennsylvania. I have been teaching at Fels now for 6 years. The reason that I decided to come to Fels to teach and have spent the last 6 years of my career here is that I really believe in the mission of the Fels Institute of Government. We are an institute and a degree program that has the goal of cultivating and helping public sector's leaders advance in their impact. And so there's a couple of different aspects of Fels that I feel are important to emphasize, but I think it really comes back to the fact that all of the faculty members, all the staff, all the students are really united in this goal, which is to give students the skills, the knowledge, the professional connections, the career supports that they need to flourish in their careers and advance. And I would say we are a very student-centered program, as I'm going to talk about in more detail. The Fels scale is pretty small. We have about 25 to 35 students in all of our cohorts, and that's so that we can provide you with a much more personalized and individualized experience. At the same time, we try to combine the analytical rigor with the practical. So as I'm going to get into, we really have an emphasis on experiential learning and making sure that what you're learning in the classroom is really relevant and directly applicable to the kind of work that you're going to be doing day to day as a public sector leader. Now, before we get into some of the nuts and bolts of the curriculum and what the program entails, I think it's important to just say a little bit about where graduates go after they finish the program. By training, I am a labor economist and I study the economics of higher education, so I'm very concerned with the data and whether the degree is a good value and is helping students pursue that career success. And so this slide has some information about where our alumni are located. So it's actually a pretty even split between government, nonprofit or NGO, private sector, and consulting, with a slightly larger share of students, 34%, going into government. If you look at data that was put out in 2023 by the US Department of Education, there's a data set called the College Scorecard, and they provide data on earnings for graduates of various programs. What that data show is that the Fels MPA and EMPA students' median earnings are in the top 2% of MPA programs nationwide. In terms of employment itself, our employment rates are very high. Anywhere between about 95 to 100% of students are employed, working on a political campaign, or continuing their education within 6 months of graduation. We also recently surveyed our alumni from the past 5 years to kind of better understand beyond even these numbers what the impact of a Fels degree was. And a couple of key themes came out of those hundreds of survey responses that we received. So a lot of students really emphasized how the skills and knowledge they learned helped them be more effective in their jobs and their roles. Other students, actually more than 50%, said that they were able to secure a different job than the one that they had before Fels, and or that Fels helped them learn about a new job role or job area that they maybe would have not considered. So one thing that you realize once you go to a lot of the different career programming at Fels is that there are so many different careers for people who want to make a public impact. that can look like a lot of different things. And so sometimes you might come into an MPA program with one idea of what you want to do, but then you learn about an exciting new area, and then maybe that's what you end up pivoting into after you finish the degree. Especially in our executive MPA program, survey respondents also mentioned that they were able to obtain promotions more quickly, that oftentimes their supervisors were impressed by the skills that they had, that they learned how to advocate for themselves in the workplace when it came to salaries, promotions, and other opportunities. Sometimes that credential itself, a master's degree from an Ivy League institution was really important. So I think there's really kind of a multifaceted set of opportunities that a public administration degree can provide. Fels, I would say, offers a pretty tight-knit community within the University of Pennsylvania. I think our program kind of offers the best of both worlds in the sense that we have a fairly small program where you are known by your peers and known by the staff and faculty, but then we are located within a much larger university. Penn has 12 different graduate schools, and as a Fels student, you can take advantage of classes in those other graduate schools in addition to our program specifically. We also have pretty strong roots throughout Philadelphia if that happens to be a geographic area that's of particular interest to you, although we certainly have alumni throughout the entire country and really the globe. At Fels, you have the opportunity to study with both world-renowned scholars as well as practitioners. So particularly the elective classes, but even a lot of the core classes are taught by people who have, decades of experience in the public sector in some capacity. And so they have a lot of knowledge and experience to share with you in the classroom. You also receive support from our fantastic and dedicated staff. You see Marlon here, but we also have 4 other amazing staff members who are able to help students in a variety of areas, whether that's student groups and events, career services, communications, events, and more. A few fast facts about our cohorts and our program. So as I mentioned, our average cohort size is about 25 to 35. The average age for the MPA program, which is our 1-year fully in-person program, is about 25. Although that's just the average, there's a pretty big range. We have some students coming straight out of undergraduate studies, and then I've even had students in that program who were in their 50s or 60s. The executive MPA program, because it does require some work experience, those students tend to be a little bit older. The average age there is 33. 27% of our students identify as underrepresented minority students, 30% first-generation college students, and then we have 14% of our students who are international students. Next, let me delve a little more deeply into the programs that we have at Fels. So we offer a Master of Public Administration degree in a fully in-person 1-year format. We offer an Executive Master of Public Administration degree that's a hybrid format where you have some of your classes online and some of the classes in person, and then you come to campus once per month. That is a program that's a part-time program spread over 2 years. And then finally, for anyone who wants to maybe just take 1 or 2 classes and doesn't want to commit to one of those master's degrees, we do have a non-degree program option. So let me just compare the MPA and our executive MPA program. So as I mentioned, the Master of Public Administration degree is a fully on-campus program that's designed to deliver the analytical tools, real-world experience, and connections that you need to begin or advance a career in the public sector. The core classes are held on campus during the day. You do have the option of taking some electives in the hybrid format if you would like to, because we do allow some crossover between the MPA and EMPA, but the vast majority of classes are at the Philadelphia campus in person. The curriculum is 9 classes, including a capstone project, as well as an internship. You can complete this degree in 1 year if you're studying full-time. If you would like to do the fully in-person degree but do it on a part-time basis, most people finish that over the course of 2 years. By contrast, the Executive Master of Public Administration program is a low residency program that combines online learning options with on-site intensive sessions in Philadelphia. This is designed mostly for working professionals. The vast majority of applicants to this program have at least 5 years of work experience. The schedule is that you have your classes online on Monday evenings. It's 1 hour for each of your 2 classes. You take 2 classes per semester. And then we have our monthly intensive weekends where you will have one of your classes all day Friday and the other class all day Saturday. And that's 9:30 to 5:30 p.m. And I have really found that the students like this format. It provides good flexibility for working professionals, while at the same time, it's not entirely online. So you have those in-person interactions that I think really add the richness to the program and allow you to form those important relationships. The EMPA program is 10 courses because it doesn't have the internship like the MPA does. It also includes a capstone project. 3 of those 10 courses are electives, and you're able to take the electives through our program, specifically public administration, or you can actually take your electives at any of the 12 Penn graduate schools. The only requirement is the class has to be a graduate level class. This program is 2 years of part-time study, and it's actually a little less than 2 years because it's over 5 semesters. And I'll get into kind of how all the courses are laid out. So let me just go into a little more detail on the MPA program. This is 12 months. As I mentioned, it has a required capstone project. The EMPA also has a required capstone project. Typically, students in this program have about 2 to 5 years of work experience, although that's just an average. This program is open to anyone with any amount of work experience, more or less than that. In the MPA program, you take 3 core classes in the fall: statistics for public policy, public economics, and writing for public policy and administration. You then choose an elective course. That elective course can be a Fels elective course, or it can be a graduate level course in some other school or department. Maybe that's the business school, maybe it's the Graduate School of Education, the law school, the School of Social Policy and Practice, and so on. You begin your capstone process by doing some exploration and then getting matched with a client. In the spring, your core classes build on what you've learned in the fall. So program evaluation and data analysis builds on what you've learned in statistics. You have a public finance and public policy class that builds on economics. And then you have a public management class that builds on a lot of the communication skills that you learned in your writing course. You then choose an elective course and you enroll in the first semester of your capstone class, which is focused on planning, research, and design of your project. You then finish up the program in the summer, where you're enrolled in the second semester of your capstone class, which is mostly focused on analysis and writing, and you have the opportunity to complete an internship. We actually provide funding for that internship. So if you find an unpaid internship opportunity that is a great fit for your professional goals and interests, we guarantee all students admitted to the MPA program $5,000 of funding to cover an internship during the summer. The Executive MPA program is a 21-month program, hybrid, low residency. We have our monthly campus executive weekends, as I mentioned, Friday and Saturdays from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. There's also usually some career programming on those same days where there might be kind of a breakfast talk that's optional if you would like to attend. We have executive leadership lunches, and we also have networking nights or mentorship nights as well. This program is 10 courses, also has a required capstone project, and most of the people in this program have 5 or more years of work experience. In the executive program, you take 2 classes each semester. So your first fall, when you begin the program, you take quantitative methods and public management. In the spring of that year, you would take economics and program evaluation and data analysis. In the summer, you take financial management of government and nonprofit organizations and an executive leadership class. During that summer, you also begin your exploration and matching for your capstone project. Then in your second year, your fall semester, you would take your 2 elective courses of your choice, and you would enroll in the first semester of the capstone class, which again is focused on planning, research, and design. And then your final semester is the spring of your second year, where you take your third and final elective class and finish your capstone class, specifically the analysis and writing of your final deliverables. Experiential learning is a signature of the program across both the MPA and EMPAs, and this shows up in a variety of ways. So just to give you a little bit of the philosophy behind this, at Fels, we believe it's really important that you are gaining the rigorous tools that you need to be successful in a wide variety of settings. But it's one thing to learn that in kind of the sanitized environment of a classroom. It's another to actually take that knowledge and those skills and put it into practice in a real world setting. And so we are very cognizant throughout the curriculum and the program at large about giving you the chance to work with actual clients that are doing the type of work that you see yourself doing in the long term. And this shows up in a couple different ways. So some of our classes have course projects. For instance, right now, our MPA students are in their writing class and they are working on a project for Big Brother, Big Sister, where basically that organization has asked them to use what they're learning in the writing class to help them craft some communications to help them gain grant funding for the important work they're doing. In the spring program evaluation and data analysis courses in both the MPA and EMPA programs, you're split up into groups and you work on real data analysis and evaluation projects for clients. As I mentioned, you have the opportunity to complete internships. We help you source those internships if you're not sure exactly kind of what direction that you want to go into for that. And then students across both programs complete an individual capstone project. So let me tell you a little bit about Capstone. So the idea here is that you are taking skills that you've learned and applying it to a public policy or public administration challenge or issue from a client. Now, you have the option of proposing your own project. A lot of times, for instance, our EMPA students will do a project that's related to their current role or their current employer. That's one option. Or you can select from a list of projects that we have sourced through something called Fels Lab. Fels Lab is our effort to identify needs amongst nonprofits, government offices, elected officials, and so on, and then bring those to the students. And then you have the opportunity to select one of those and complete one of your projects. I think what's unique about the way we do capstone at Fels is that this is an individual project where you have ownership and maintain the leadership role. So I know in some other master's programs, they have capstone projects or something similar, but oftentimes it's kind of this group project. And we certainly have group work at Fels, but we want to make sure that you have something you can put on your resume that's kind of wholly your own. The projects are extremely varied, both in terms of the clients and the content of the projects. So I'll throw out just a couple examples from this past year. So we had a student work with the US State Department. The State Department specifically was looking at a social media strategy to try to engage youth in Saudi Arabia. And so the student did this analysis of what campaigns have been really successful in the past, what are even the metrics we should use to assess success, and then made a bunch of recommendations for how the US Embassy could use that to form their social media strategy. We had another student do a project for a nonprofit called Solidarity Engineering. So this is a nonprofit that tries to serve refugee populations in areas with a lot of displaced people with infrastructure. So this could be oftentimes sanitation or temporary housing, those kinds of things. And a student for her project created this data platform that would pull from these publicly available data sources and in real time basically update recommendations for the organization for where they should be targeting their interventions, where the need would basically be the greatest. At a more local level, we had a student do a project for the City of Philadelphia Office of Sustainability, where they were trying to figure out how they could fund various climate change related resilience interventions and programs. So they knew this was going to be a pretty costly but important thing for the city over the next several decades. But where are they going to get the funding? Basically, the student was able to do a very extensive research project to figure out, what have other cities and states done in this issue, and basically made a recommendation to the city about some land value capture mechanisms that they could use. We had yet another student do a project for an organization called the Food Trust, which is a nonprofit focused on food access issues. This particular student was really helping them with what I call like a legislative roadmap. So they wanted to have a law passed in Pennsylvania that focused on local food purchasing initiatives. What that is basically it's funding from the state to allow schools to purchase local organic produce. And so there are actually 18 other states that have this legislation in place. This organization really wanted to advocate for that in the state of Pennsylvania. So what the student did is actually look through all of the state level elected officials, and identified, these are the representatives who should really sponsor this bill because they have interests that are most aligned with this food purchasing initiative. He then created a 43-page guidebook about how they could then go from basically getting a sponsor to actually getting this passed. So things like, how do you find the right chiefs of staff? It was email templates, scripts they could use, communication strategies. It was a really extensive effort to basically help them achieve their goal of lobbying for this legislation. We had one other student who did a project that was related to where National Guard armories are located. And basically, are they strategically located to promote retention of National Guard members? I'm just throwing out, I could go on and on because I love the capstone projects and I think they're really fascinating, but I think that just gives you some taste of how there are so many different projects and students are gaining all of these different skills that they're applying to some of the most pressing challenges that we have as a society. Elective courses. So with the Fels model, you take your core classes together as a cohort, and I think that provides a nice sense of support and camaraderie. And then you can customize your degree with your elective choices. As I mentioned, you can take your elective classes through the public administration program, or you could decide that you want to take one or more of your elective classes from one of the other graduate schools at the University of Pennsylvania. Couple examples of electives. This is not a fully exhaustive list, but some popular ones among our students would be negotiations, public communications, which is focused on public speaking, government relations, leading nonprofits, use and misuse of data, politics of urban housing and development. Everything on the left-hand side there are Fels electives. And then some electives that are popular around Penn would be classes like strategic engagement with government, navigating the regulatory state, applied linear modeling, and social finance. But there are hundreds of classes at Penn, so it'd be impossible for me to put them all on this slide. We offer a number of concentrations also as a way to customize your degree. And so basically the elective courses and the capstone project you choose have to be aligned with your concentration. Our concentration areas are domestic policy, political advocacy, nonprofit management, international affairs. And then the two here with the asterisks, these are concentrations that are specific to the fully in-person one-year program. Quantitative policy analytics and international impact evaluation. Those are actually STEM designated majors, which could be relevant if you're an international student seeking OPT. Data analytics is the quantitative concentration that we have available in the EMPA program. And then if none of those appeal to you, you have the option of pursuing an individualized concentration where you could decide to select electives that are specific to your topic interests or career goals and then put that together in your own concentration. We also offer a number of dual degrees. So with some of these, you could actually get 2 master's degrees in just 2 years at the University of Pennsylvania. We've listed many here on this slide, but you're also welcome to go to our website, and we list out a lot more detail about the dual degree programs there. If you are planning to pursue a dual degree, I would encourage you to talk to Marlon or another one of our staff members so that they can talk you through what that would look like in terms of your course progression and course scheduling. Finally, we do offer a non-degree program. This allows you to explore Fels classes without committing to one of the full degree programs. There's really no restrictions on this as long as there's space. You can enroll in any course that Fels has to offer. And then up to 2 courses can transfer towards a future MPA or EMPA if you later decide that you want to pursue the full master's degree. We offer pretty extensive career supports that are very customized and individualized to you. The woman here shown on this slide, Colleen Bonner, is our excellent career advisor. So she starts to meet with students even before they ever come to campus in these one-on-one meetings to identify what your strengths are, what areas you might want to address, and kind of strategize when it comes to opportunities at Fels and kind of how you would get from A to B if you have a specific goal. If you don't have a specific goal, Colleen is great for just thinking through exploring different options and areas that might be of interest. We also have a very formal mentorship program where you're matched with somebody who's connected with your career interests or career goals. And then you meet with that person on a regular basis to just, have informal off the record conversations. Maybe they have suggestions for other people in their network that you can talk to. Maybe you just want to have kind of another friendly ear as you think through things and talk through things. We have a pretty extensive Fels alumni network that's very heavily involved. So when we have our networking nights that correspond with the executive weekends, a lot of those alumni will come back. They're a great asset for you, not only in explaining kind of what their experience in the program was like and what they took out of it, but also what they're doing now. And they're always happy to talk with current students and point them in the right direction. We have a number of speaker series as well. So we have a public policy and practice speaker series where once each semester we invite a very big name speaker. So this might be, a US senator, a US representative, a governor, some other major kind of nationally known leader in the nonprofit space. We try to get a pretty wide range of speakers, and they talk about what their journey in public service has been like. What are some of the key lessons? What are some of the key issues they're grappling with? We also have a racial equity and social justice conversations series that focuses on that theme. A lot of those are virtual, so if you ever want to join one of those as a prospective student, you can always sign up and get the link to join that. We have various policy and career talks as well as career days. So actually our students this Friday are going down to the Penn Biden Center in Washington, D.C. to have a whole day where they're going to hear from all kinds of different alumni and folks about different career options in DC. Everything from working on the Hill and being a legislative staffer to maybe working in one of the federal agencies. We have some people that are going to speak about working at the FBI and Homeland Security. And it's just a great chance for folks to be in Washington, D.C. and hear from our alumni that are based there. As I mentioned, we have very frequent networking receptions that are also available for students to meet folks. Obviously, undertaking a professional master's degree at an Ivy League institution like Penn can be a kind of expensive proposition. And so we do our best to offer as much scholarship money and financial aid as we can. We guarantee every MPA student the public leadership and service stipend. That's the $5,000 of internship funding I mentioned before. We also offer our 15 for 5 scholarship, which is a $15,000 scholarship in recognition of 5 years of government service. So if you have worked for 5 years at the local, state, federal government level or in the military, you would qualify for this scholarship. We also have a number of admissions partners. So you can find the full list on our website, but organizations like AmeriCorps, Teach for America, and so forth. We have admissions partners, and if you've worked for one of those organizations, we also guarantee you $15,000 of scholarship money. If you don't qualify in any of the other categories, don't fear, you're still eligible for the Fels Public Service Scholarship, which is just generally available merit scholarship money. Unlike maybe the process for undergraduate financial aid, there's no separate financial aid application. Instead, we automatically consider all applicants for all of the scholarships and financial aid that's available just based on your regular application, as long as you click that bubble that says, I'd like to be considered for financial aid. And then here's the list of those organizations that qualify for the admissions partner scholarships: AmeriCorps, Bonner Foundation, City Year, Eastern Leadership Academy, Govern for America, Jesuit Volunteer Corps. And I won't read them all off here, but you can find all of these again on our website. Finally, some logistical details about the application. We have a fairly standard online application where you will submit a personal statement and an essay. The personal statement essentially asks you to explain what your professional goals are and how a Fels MPA or EMPA degree would facilitate or help you in achieving those. The second essay asks you to discuss or review a time where you faced a significant challenge in your personal and professional life and kind of how you addressed that and overcame that. You'll upload your resume as well as academic transcripts. We ask you to submit 2 letters of recommendation. Typically, people are going to ask professors who have taught them in the past or a work supervisor to submit one of those letters of recommendation. My advice would be to ask someone who knows you fairly well and can speak to your skills and your interest in pursuing a graduate degree like this. We are test score optional, so you're not required to submit any test scores. However, you're certainly welcome to submit them if you have them. I will also say if you're a candidate that maybe has a little bit of a weaker academic record, maybe you had a little bit of a rough time in undergrad, sometimes submitting the test scores can be a plus for your application just because it can show the admissions committee that you are academically skilled and qualified and will do well in the program. And so the test scores are just one more data point that can potentially help your candidacy. Application deadline. So we have a deadline coming up for the MPA program, or application fee waiver deadline of December 1st. What that means is if you submit by December 1st, the online portal will automatically waive the application fee. So it's a great thing if you can get your application in by that deadline. But if not, we do have a regular deadline, which is January 15th, 2025. For the executive MPA program, the cycle is a little bit later. The application fee waiver deadline for that is February 1st, 2025, and then our regular deadline is April 1st, 2025. For the non-degree option, we have admissions on a rolling basis, and the dates listed here correspond to the semester in which you desire to start your studies. So that concludes all the prepared material I have, but I would love to stick around and answer any questions you have. Feel free to put them into the chat if that's more convenient for you, or you are also welcome to unmute your microphone and ask your question live.